recycling or all your yard waste in a brown paper bag and not plastic, because we're not allowed to accept it.
Exactly.
But it's on a revolving calendar on the website as far as when yard waste is, and I believe it's
the
also
same
on
as the
99.
recycling, right?
First and third Saturday.
Yes, I think
Right.
so.
Yeah.
All the times I've been there, that bin's been filled with stuff.
Yes.
With trees and debris and
Especially
everything
this
else.
time of year.
Yeah, there's tons of people dropping off lawn waste. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next page, Department 60, Parks and Recreation. This is actually one of the, an example, if you look at the very top for salary and wages, where it's actually went down slightly. So that allocation that we've done for the budget, you can see the other side of things in this department. The total budget for last year, or this current year, was 150,769. This year, the proposed budget is 178,278. The bulk of this increase is the fact that the pool season will be open for the entire fiscal year, not just half a fiscal year. So that makes up the majority of it. You see that in the line item 5505 contractual, increasing from 27,230 to 57,900 because of the full pool season.
That
We
was
d-
the pool contract.
Right, correct. We have a couple line items that we want to point out in parks. First being the operating supplies, line 6110.
110, operating supplies. That line item actually stayed the same. We have $1,000 in the pool for operating supplies, $200 for the park buildings, $200 for signs, $500 for general, which are basically the pet waste station bags, and then $500 for the dog park, which makes up a total of $2,400.
I have a question. I don't see, would that be under communication for the cameras?
That actually will be in Fund 2. We'll
Fund
get to
2.
that.
Okay, because, we're gonna need some more cameras added to town. You was talking, when you talked to me the other day about cameras, there's the dog park is being vandalized already. And we need a camera, if we can
Right,
get a camera. on
Right,
that.
and I discussed it with you briefly at the pool. It's in Fund 2, and I'll be able to explain the system to you when we get to Fund 2 as well. It's gonna be split between streets and parks, but we'll get
Okay.
into that.
What's happening at the dog park?
They're
I know we had
filling
the lock issue the opening day.
They're filling up I think teenagers are going in, filling up the water things with all the mulch. Just filling so that your dogs can't use it. You have to dig it all out. Why they're doing it, I have no clue, because they have no reason to go in there and fill it up, but
It's
you know.
not dogs, just.
No, it's not the dogs, but they're filling it up, because the dogs would just drink the water out. They're filling it clear to the top.
Okay,
And I've had a couple complaints about it, so, and that's what I was told.
sure.
People were, they seen some teenagers in there doing it, but they couldn't catch them doing, you know.
Sure, okay.
Seen them in there while they were in there without dogs. So,
Okay.
Another line item we want to discuss is the repairs and maintenance, the account 6200.
Right. So that line item increased from 11,200 to 14,200, and the basic, I'll highlight, $500 for the grounds, $1,200 for equipment, $2,500 for the pool, $1,000 for the park buildings. We added some money to ball fields because we are going to need, in need of new ball field mix for our fields. $2,500 for the playgrounds. Routinely, we have to add mulch to all our playgrounds. $1,000 for contingency. $1,000 in general, which are going to be designated for the ash tree treatments per the DNR. Per DNR, we do have ash trees that have to be treated so they don't become diseased. And then $500 for the dog park. Any questions?
The
Oh,
ball
yes.
field mix, sorry, go ahead.
My question was, I know it brought up at one of the previous meetings about the Emmett Garden Park kind of moving along. Which slide is that? Is it this slide or is it another
Well,
slide?
Emmett Garden Park is actually funded in Fund 2, and playground specialist told me that they will begin work on July 5th.
Light fifth on that.
Because
Okay,
of the
that's
rain,
great.
it backed them
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I hear on
Staff
that.
has already gone out and removed the tree, so we're
Okay.
just waiting for them.
Okay, I know it had briefly been mentioned on the previous meetings, and I just wanted like where it was in the
Yes.
slides. Cool,
I
excellent.
heard the bell.
That's,
We just. Commissioner Buckman's daughter is
my
Okay.
daughter's-
visiting
Okay.
your other daughter?
she's picking her
Anybody
up.
else in,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
go ahead. Special events and programs. Where am I at? 60.
And the last line item, the show in Department 60, special events and programs.
All right,
Line 16.
slight reduction by $300, $600 for the farmer's market, $1,200 for community functions, $100 for the community garden, $1,200 for the pool, and $500 for general. This is where, originally there was, the reduction in this, slight reduction came from not having the after-school program. Typically, we funded $500 to the after-school program, in special events and programs.
Are there any additional questions in Department 60?
Yes. I do have a few questions. If we get to the part of the budget where we would, I'm turning to Mr. President now, potentially a vote to increase a line item,
Yes, sir.
is this the time to do it?
If you wanted, we could, or we could hear the whole budget and then move through. The reason I'd suggest the latter would be, if you see a place where you feel there is excessive funding, you can make a suggestion to defund Area 1 so as to enhance funding for Area 2. So
Okay.
by waiting till the end, you'd see the whole sweep of the budget.
Yes.
However, if you have something in mind specifically and you see that source now to move money, that would be, this would be appropriate also. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I
Bucket
would-
one
I
to
would
bucket
like-
two.
I would like to wait then.
Okay.
To the end. Let's see. Do I have any?
You have last year's budget to see what's left, right?
Yes.
No, they were addressed.
I know what he's getting
Making
at.
sure.
And I know he didn't.
I have no questions at this time then.
Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on to the next page, couple departments here. Department 70, debt service. This is the part of the budget where we have items and numbers listed as far as our loans that are through the general fund. As you can see, last year's budget was $49,122. This year's budget is $33,663. One of our loans that we have on the books will be completed this fiscal year, so that's the major reason that's decreased. And the numbers for this department come directly from our loan agreements that we have. Department 75, interfund transfers. Last year's budget was $218,341. This year's budget, which essentially this department is the residual of all the revenues that we have taken in, minus all the department expenses. This is the portion where we can designate to Fund 2 the capital projects that we actually do a transfer from Fund 1 to Fund 2. So this is kind of our amounts that we can designate in that area. That total comes out to the $232,819, and we'll also, the schedule that's listed below that, we'll see that also in the capital projects Fund 2 section that we're going to look at the next couple pages. But Ms. Willits can kind of go over what has been proposed for the different sections. Page 16, and that's why it was handed out earlier to you all, page 16 is in conjunction with page 18 and page 19, which is the Fund 2 capital projects section. If you wouldn't mind turning to page 18, the schedule there lists, to your left, lists the different departments and the different subcategories and their current balances as of today, actually. That middle column is the proposed budget that is proposed, that matches up with page 16. And then if you add the first two columns together, with the transfer, that would be the proposed balance going forward if approved. So I'll let Ms. Willets kind of go over the different areas of allocation and designation.
So, just real quick, so any changes if we were to make in the general fund, if there's additions or subtractions, that number will then affect your bottom line and then will ultimately affect your transfers to Fund 2. So everything kind of has a trickle-down effect unless we even it out. So if you wanted to make a change in one line item and we were able to adjust it somewhere else, then the bottom line will stay the same. I'm not saying you can't do it, just it does have a trickle-down effect. So these are some of the projects. This is just a highlighted, some of the projects we were looking to do in 2019. Hoping to have the town square completed by the end of June. The Emmett Gardens Playground will be completed. We are, and this will be for much future meetings, as you know, we're having some serious issues with our pumping station. We are looking at a pumping station upgrade. That will require funding from the state and federal level for grants and loans. We're just at the basic beginning stages to investigate it. We just completed getting bids just for the engineering costs alone. To go along with that is this sewer relining on East Main Street where, as you recall, I've mentioned that there are some possible holes in our sewer line that is causing the large amount of I&I that we are receiving at the wastewater treatment plant. We are still working on the well issue and 8-inch mountain line, water line that on Hampton Valley Road and Crystal Fountain Road. We submitted a grant for the community pool bathhouse rehab. We submitted a grant for the ADA accessible playground. We did submit a grant for the multi-use field, and you'll see in a future slide for behind us. We did not receive that grant. We did not receive any funding for that through Community Parks and Playgrounds, so that's a no-go. We had talked about making this a multi-purpose lacrosse soccer field. We did not receive any funding. Doesn't mean we can't in the future. We just did not receive it this year.
Not this time.
Right.
Okay.
And we do have a large amount of water and sewer line repairs that will be needed in the upcoming fiscal year. So getting back to the capital projects fund transfer, as Mr. Tabler mentioned, it's basically your excess from your revenue to your expenses in your general fund. This year, between the revenue and the proposed budget, or the proposed expenses, we have an excess of $232,819. If you look at this pie chart, it shows you where staff is proposing we budget the money. Now, this is where we're proposing it. If in the future we see that we don't need that line item or we need to increase that line item, staff can come back to you, as we have in the past, for a budget transfer between line items. But this is where, right at this point, with work with town staff of where we believe the funding would be appropriate at this time. I'm gonna go down just by the line item. So it's proposed to move another $10,000 into GIS. We're continuing with our mapping. I believe in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna complete, or they're gonna come back out and finish mapping the water and sewer system with our staff. We're just trying to get through some other projects. A transfer of $9,819 to Department 15107, which is Up County or Christ Community Church. Per Mr. Fissel, it is in need of a new roof. The estimate for the roof is $20,000. So with this transfer, it would bring the total amount to $51,718. Move 5,000 to 140 South Seaton, and that is for various repairs, including the shed that is falling down in the back, as well as the garage needs painted, and it's going to need some repairs to the garage roof and to the boiler system.
I have a question. You dropped it, the new page you gave us dropped it 5,000? If you need the repairs, why would you drop it 5,000?
What are you talking about?
The old one we have in our old budget has 5,000, I think. For the one, I'm looking at the wrong one.
I'm not sure.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me see. Oh, you're on 18? Oh. No. Oh, maybe that's why I got, I'm looking at the wrong one. No, I'm looking at the other one.
Capital projects.
Yeah, here, this one. No, I was looking for transfers.
Yeah, page
Yeah, we're
18,
on transfers.
5,000.
The interfund transfers, is that what we're on?
Mm-hmm. Page 18, Department 15, line 108,
Let me see.
5,000.
Yeah, 140 was 5.
Yes?
Oh, it stayed 5.
Yes.
Okay, but one of them went down. Oh, wait a minute. South Seaton. 3A went down. The old one was 10 and it went down to 5.
I don't
Why
know
was
where,
that?
I'm sorry, I do not know where you're,
Okay, I see where you are.
The prior
Okay,
handout.
page 18, Department 15, the old documentation showed the proposed budget for
Just got the new handout.
the
102.
old one.
Yeah.
That said
I was looking at the old one,
$10,000.
and it was a half difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The new handout, it says $5,000.
Right, that is the
Right.
correct one.
Okay.
That's the correct one. And
Yes.
why is it only 5
Because
instead
if
of
you add
10?
these numbers up, you only need 5,000.
Oh, okay, I was
And,
wondering
and we have spent a lot of money at 140, so I was just trying to build the fund
okay.
back up. So I gave myself some room to play with. There were some other items. Basically what it is I take a huge wish list of everything that needs to be done and prioritize it. And some things become a priority over other things. But this thing, 5,000, will get the work done that I'm being told needs to be taken care of.
Okay,
Okay?
Mr. Sweeney, can I ask a question?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so related to the prioritization piece, I'm looking down below at Public Works. Is that okay?
Can I get through buildings?
Sure.
Is that okay?
That'd be fine.
All
Yep.
right, thank you. I'm just gonna go down, trying to go down the order.
Yep, no
So I
problem.
don't get confused.
Yep.
22 East Main Street, I added 5,000 to that. The 20 East 2 Main Street is in need of a circulator, couplings for the boiler, a pressure inspection, carpeting, and the gas heater needs repaired. Prior to that, we only had $388 in 22 East Main Street. For 300A South Seaton, there is 5,000 in there to, we need to upgrade our camera system for this building, as well as we need to repair a screen on our generator, as well as a fuel leak in the sensor of the generator.
The one outside?
Yes,
Yes.
that's why we keep getting the alarms.
Beeping, beeping, beeping.
Yes.
Okay. I was
The
saying,
order up there doesn't match the sheet, that's why we got mixed up. The 300A is actually second on the sheet here, right?
The orders.
Some of the orders.
That's
are mixed
correct.
up.
The order's slightly
Okay.
Mixed up a
different.
little bit, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. All right, I'm coming down to Public Works. Your question, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes, okay. I'm looking at the funding for, well, let me get to the line, I'm sorry. 385, Department 30, line 385, Department 30. Curbs, gutter, sidewalks, roads. Though I'm not concerned about the amount, it's reduced from what was originally put in front of us to this current sum, 65,000. How do we prioritize our sidewalk projects? Is there a means by which, because this is something that's vexed me forever with like the state, there's no formula, there's no format, there's no
With the state, you mean?
There's no filter process, as it were, or gatekeeping process.
Probably, I mean, the way we prioritize it is based off our public works staff being out and either complaints that we receive
Okay.
or the need that Public Works notices as they're out on their daily duties.
So we're going for acute and hot, but not like projecting. Okay.
There are some that we do know, I don't have my list in front of me, that Mr. Click, who is very diligent, he has a list of what projects need to be done.
Okay.
And he has this at the beginning of each season. Part of this is also the 65,000. We have to spend upwards of 7,000 to restripe all our or paint all our curbs, all our X's as part of the after the revitalization project is finished.
Sure. Okay.
If there are needs that you have seen, certainly send them to my attention.
Okay.
you know, it is the start of our paving season, so this money's gonna go through pretty quickly.
Great, okay. That's good.
Well, I was
I'm just
wondering-
glad to hear that there's a process, because.
There is a
I know-
process.
I know hot and acute, obviously, you know, put the fires out where the fires are,
Right.
but then
Right.
where are we going in the long run? Okay.
How,
Up here, under, did you have,
I had it for the curbs too. I was wondering why it got lowered $7,000.
which one?
Curb and gutter.
Because I had originally put the painting of the curbs in there.
Oh, okay.
And, right now we have enough funding in there to do both. It didn't need the additional 7,000.
That's great.
So if you if you
Couldn't use
go,
that on blacktop or any more sidewalk anywhere.
I'm sorry.
We couldn't use it anywhere else for sidewalk and blacktop anywhere. The $7,000. The extra money you had in there.
Oh, went to other projects.
Yeah.
As you see, when we get down here, there's other projects that it got assigned to.
Oh, okay.
It's already been moved.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
I was
thank you.
wondering.
It
I mean,
has.
if you had a place to put it, it'd been nice to put it.
In Department 30, you see equipment, the line item 330, $7,500. Speaking with Mr. Click and the fire department, there's a need to upgrade our camera and monitoring system along our streets and our parks to help alleviate some of the vandalism that's occurring. You know, we've lost a lot of street signs, parking signs, park signs, damage in our dog park. The fire department's going to this system also. These cameras are placed through town, and there's a monitoring system that the deputies could access, the fire department can access, staff can access, to keep us all safe, to try to deter vandalism. So what we've done, the system's about $15,000, and there's going to be a split between Department 30 and Department 60, because some will go in the parks and some will go to the streets. And then line item 340, as usual, we always put $55,000 into vehicles. We do have a schedule. Last year, we did put budget money in there for a new town car. We are still looking to do that towards the end of June, beginning of July. In fiscal year 19, we are going to need to replace our mini dump, which is about $55,000. In fiscal year 20, we're going to need to replace our backhoe. In fiscal year 21, we're going to need to replace our dump trucks. We do have a prioritization as far as replacing our vehicles. And that's why we continue to add money to them, because, you know, they're not cheap.
Correct.
Town Square, we added $2,500 for flowers and upkeep. The first year, State Highway will take care of not for the maintenance, but take care of anything that would not live, you know, planting, things like that nature. After the first year, it falls on us to replace anything. There's supposed to be, is it perennials that keep coming back? But we will need to take care of it. They'll need watered and trimmed and things like that. So that money's to go there. We talked about the $65,000 for paving, excuse me. Lost my train of thought. Down to 60, Department 60 in the pool, asked for a transfer of 23,000. I needed, at the end of the whole pool project, we needed a fund total of 36,805. $18,500 of that would be our portion of the bathhouse grant match. For both grants, we had to show that we would have funding for a match of that grant. We estimated high at what the cost would be for the bathhouse. We're estimating our match would be about $18,500. And the final draw for the pool completion is $18,238. And then, where am I at? Ball fields, we have $7,500 in the ball fields. The roof to the dugout, to the concession stand needs to be reshingled. The majority of the dugout roofs are in dire need of repair, and we are having to replace the one dugout roof that was destroyed during the wind event. Now, that is an insurance claim, but we do have to pay out of pocket initially for that. The Moving down to park rec equipment upgrades. The transfer request of 28,500. 7,500 of that is the camera monitoring system that's split with Department 30. And then the remaining part of that would be our match for the all-accessible playground that's required from both funding sources, that we have to show that we do have the grant funds set aside for that.
Okay.
Moving down.
Commissioner Buckman, yes.
Our pavilion, or what is that, the little amphitheater? that's
Bandstand?
The bandstand is in terrible disrepair
Yes.
and not very usable. It needs some attention. Is that something that we can,
Staff's been directed to do what they can to repair it and get it functional for this year. There is a community parks and playground grant that will open up in July that we're gonna submit for a grant to completely rehab the bandstand.
that's wonderful.
It's one of the projects we're
They
gonna
needed
submit
it last
for.
year.
Way to go.
That was easy.
You got it fixed, yeah.
Well, they sent us, I believe it was your committee that sent us some nice suggestions of the bandstand, and staff went out and took a look at it. So we're gonna do our best, have staff just get it up and functional for this year, and then, hopefully we can get a grant to completely rehab it. Moving down, trail maintenance and promotion, we added $1,500 towards that. And then in the, Fund 60, or Department 60, 999, you'll see I added 7,500 to bring that total to 16,468. Town staff submitted for a grant through MHAA, which is the Maryland Historical Society, for 3 wayside signs. Basically, they're historical, large marking signs, and to be a part of that grant, you had to submit also matching funds. Our matching funds would be 9,000. It has to be earmarked in our budget, so that's what that line item would include. So that brings your total transfers for this budget year, $232,819. Any other questions?
I do have a question. It's not a financial question, but it pertains to what we just discussed. The sewer relining on East Main Street, is that going to affect traffic at all?
I'm sure it probably will.
Do we
I
have
don't know
an
how they do
idea?
it. They don't dig up, they don't
It go-
dig up the whole road.
It
They,
goes-
they kind of, I don't remember the term.
It-
Commissioner Sweeney would know,
it should go through, they'll reline it, it looks like,
it's kind of like
a
snaking
liquid.
it, right?
Yeah, it's a liquid goes through first.
Right, it's like snaking it almost.
And then it'll get hard, and then they'll go through with the little camera and a little saw, and they'll cut out all the service holes if there's service holes or places comes out. And
Okay.
It's really, it saves a lot of money because you don't have to dig up with the relining.
Okay.
You don't have to dig up the blacktop
Yeah,
and
we don't want a
service saw.
mutiny in town.
No, but they'll go from manhole to manhole, so there will be some,
See where I was going with
depending on
that.
where they're
Yeah.
sitting at.
Yeah.
But it will,
And this was,
hopefully, and you can only do that if you have a significant amount of pipe. If it's missing, like
Right.
some of our other pipes that went through North Seaton where they had to replace up through the back end of Emmett Ridge.
We've already cambered it, so they know where the locations are.
Yeah.
Okay. That,
Yes,
that
that is a
was-
priority. Obviously, we would
Yeah.
work around where the bridge is at the time, and obviously, the square project will be completed at the end of June, so that won't be, won't have any bearing on it, but it is something that we're gonna need to do in the near future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
okay.
That's all I have.
So moving on to Fund 4, the water department, if you would, and the Fund 5, the sewer department, if you take a look at page 22, gives you a summary of each of the funds. We'll walk through each of them. That gives you an outline of the total revenues and the total expenses for this current budget year and the proposed budget year that's coming up. If you would turn to page 24, which is Department 40 Water. Take a look at the water revenue. We have a slide up there that represents the revenue over the past 9 years. You can see how it's kind of leveled out from about 4 or 5 years ago. Last year's budget was $510,000. This year it's gone up, proposed of $558,500. The two main items that for the increase, one again is the interest that we have on our banking accounts, which goes from $3,500 to $10,000 as proposed budget, and we have a line item 4436 for tap fees. We actually anticipate some building here in the town, which has been stagnant last few years. So that's additional revenues that should come into the town for the year. So our final budget proposal is for water is $558,500. Expenses in total have increased from last year's budget of $529,443. This year's budget we proposed $589,422, and that's represented also on this slide. The last gives you the history of the last 9 years. You can see how it's went up and it's gone down, and we're going up slightly this year. A lot of that has to do with some of the expenses that have to do with the new wastewater treatment plant at different points in time. A couple of the line items we wanted to highlight underwater. The first one we want to highlight is the contractual line item 5505.
All right. So, you want me to take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the big one.
So if you contractual, you'll see there's an increase from roughly 33,000 to about 41,800, and basically the increase is you have a $2,500 base. You have a fee for our HR, which is spread across the board. We have $8,000 for leak detection, which is the gentleman. He comes in twice a year, and he listens to our pipes essentially to find leaks. It was extremely successful the last go around. $7,000 in lab fees, $13,000 for the algae control. That's our yearly contractor agreement for the monitoring and the repairs for the algae sonic at Rainbow Lake, and then $10,000 for the second phase of the rep at Rainbow Lake, which is basically your erosion control, as we discussed last year. It's an overall $30,000 project. We are doing it in 3 phases. This will be phase number 2. Anybody that's been out to the lake can see that the work that was done, he did an outstanding job with it. So we're going to move to the second phase.
I was expecting with that algae sonic system that ours overtime would go down because we wouldn't have to go up there and flush it and do all of this sort of thing.
See, what makes up overtime is not only, the overtime related to the alarms that we were constantly getting for the filters because they were constantly clogging.
That's right.
That overtime has gone down, but if you recall throughout this year, we've had a lot of leaks, a lot of overnight work related to the new water line at the Square project, overtime at the bridge. We've just had a lot of water line issues, the mountain. So basically what we've done is we estimate high on the overtime. We can't predict it, unfortunately.
Right.
But that side of it did go down. If you recall in my presentation, we did reduce overtime on that aspect of water.
For clarity's sake, sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead.
Nisher, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question about Brookfield, and how many taps is Brookfield, that project, going to be?
For each house, it's one water tap and one sewer tap.
Okay, and how many houses are they proposing? You have an idea?
We just got a,
47,
47?
47 more houses?
Right.
Okay.
We just had a request for 3.
I was wondering,
Not knowing how many they were gonna do, how many houses they were gonna sell, we were trying to be conservative.
okay. So it's basically just, you're not selling the lots by themselves, they're actually got to put something on there first, I guess.
Believe so.
Okay, I
believe
wasn't
you've
sure.
got to buy the lot and build the house.
Okay, I just wasn't sure how much in advance.
Right.
What was going on with it, type of thing. So.
Right.
Okay, cool. That's what I
That
had.
was my exact question. No, no. All right, I will retain my question because it's not related.
About this house, Seaton,
Southgate.
Southgate.
I haven't heard anything about Southgate.
Any of the houses, they haven't proposed any houses there?
No,
Or anything.
we've not heard anything.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We will.
Yeah, not yet.
Absolutely.
If you build it, they will come.
Another area we wanted to highlight in water is your operating supplies. Basically, what makes up your operating supplies is a lot of different parts of it. You have 500 in equipment. You have 3,000 in lines and piping, 1,500 just for the basic necessities at the water plant, 3,000 for the lab. We spend about 12,500 in Mount Water, 5,500 in tools, and then the 25,000 to replace 100 of the 200 old meters and 1,500 general. Last year, we determined that we had about 300 old water meters that were not reading properly, that we needed to we wanted to upgrade. So we proposed doing 100 each year, and so we're in the second round of it. So we proposed another 100, which is about 25,000. Ultimately, it does save the town money in the long run because the water is being read accurately, and so people are being billed correctly. Chemicals stayed exactly the same. So we estimate high. We got 2,500 in chlorine, 1,500 in soda ash, 7,400 in Delpac, 4,200 in coagulant, and 500 in general. We still have reduced our usage, our chemical usage by not even adding the Green Clean Pro to the lake, which is $10,000. As you can see, where we've reduced our chemical usage from 2017 to 2018. Chlorine stayed about the same, but we reduced the soda ash, we reduced the Delpac, coagulant stayed the same, but what's not on here is the complete reduction of not putting Green Clean Pro into the lake. Excuse me, repairs and maintenance for Department 40 in the water. Fiscal year 2018, the budget was $48,000. This year, the budget is $57,500. Several of the areas increased. We have $2,000, basically repairs and maintenance for the mountain rental property, which is Hampton Valley Road. It's considered a water. 500 in equipment, 7,000 in lines and piping, 17,500 at the water plant, 15,700 for the storage tank. That's a contract, correct? That's what the storage tank is.
Correct.
4,000 for the wells, 500 for the lab, 750 for contingency, and 500 for general. The following items were added this year. There's a need for 1,900 for the gravel and anthracite for the roughing filters, 2,000 for a valve rebuild kit, $650 for a recirculator, $1,000 for a light in the storage area, $3,500 additional funding for the mountain rental property. The furnace needs cleaned. We need to pump their holding tank, and we need to replace the storage shed.
This next slide represents the Department of Water revenues and expenses. And as you can see, this current year, our revenues are slightly below our expenses by $30,922. One thing to do is to look at the water fund in conjunction with the sewer fund. Though we lose slightly in the water fund, we make up for it in the sewer fund. So,
Anybody have any questions with the water? If you recall, I mean, your sewer rates, and we explained, a gentleman came in, I think Mr. Tabler spoke to him, why sewer costs, if you look at your bill, sewer rates, your sewer cost is so much higher than water. Well, the rates increase according to, your new wastewater treatment plant. The cost of treating water and sewer is different. It's cheaper to treat water than it is sewer. However, your water rates have not increased in a significant amount of time. So the water is slowly starting to lag behind as sewer continues to stay in the positive. Our water is slowly starting to fall behind.
Cost-wise, preparation of cost?
What's that?
Cost, right, cost of preparation, we're falling behind? Like-
Costs, yes.
Okay.
Your revenue is, your revenue isn't keeping up with the expenses,
Okay.
It's getting expensive to treat it.
This next slide represents some of the future projects in the water fund. And I'll
Right.
let Ms. Willits go over a couple of those.
So as you can see, these things are cash items that can be paid as a cash expense. They're not budgeted items. The 10-inch line on Hampton Valley Road, that's the cost to move one of the properties. As you recall, related to the 8-inch line on the mountain line, there were 3 properties that were to be affected. One of the properties we are able to move to the 10-inch line, and that cost is about $4,400. That resident has been advised that we can do this, and but it won't be until after you approve the budget. The mountain water line, this is something that's been on the list for a considerable amount of time, doesn't necessarily have to be done right now to tie the mountain water line, tie the Mount St. Mary's line to the 8-inch line. That may not occur now. We're still in discussions of that. The track road water line basically sits on the surface. It is in bad shape and in desperate need of repair. That is one that we're going to have to do. As well as the North Seaton water line and the Waynesboro Pike water line. There, we are always out there repairing both those lines. As you can see, the costs to repair those are very high. We do have a meeting with Department of Community Housing and Development in the middle of June. They do provide funding for infrastructure projects. These are projects that we're going to bring to their attention that we will be looking for funding for, as well as the sewer relining and some other projects. Obviously, we need assistance. We can't fund these on our own.
Are we bringing a prepared set of documents to give them?
No, we're just getting our feel. It's just a kind of like a meeting to sit down and here's what we can offer you. These are some of the projects we're looking to do. Do they match the funding that you offer?
Terrific.
And if not, can you point us in the right direction?
Great, okay.
So we're looking at potentially these projects, even if they come to fruition, maybe, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but just an idea, potentially when they could be addressed.
At least a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not something,
won't be right away.
by the time, if, for anybody that was around for the wastewater treatment plant, and that, I wasn't here, but my understanding is it took you about a year to get the funding in place for the project from the start to actually breaking ground to start.
Well, no, I mean, a year is,
Not bad.
no, I was thinking maybe you were gonna say like 5 years or something like that.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know that we'd do both, we might do one then the other, but there's things that are on the horizon that, we need to keep talking about because there are things that are gonna have to be done. We have to take care of our infrastructure.
Is there one that takes precedent?
My understanding with, just talking to staff, the Waynesboro Pike one. And then the turbidimeters, they're just, a piece of equipment that's needed at the water plant. Because they are $7,000, they can be a cash item and depreciated, so we did not include that in the actual budget.
Thank you.
Moving on to Fund 5, Department 50, sewer. Taking a look at the sewer revenue. This slide represents the revenue over the past several years. Fiscal year 18 budget was a little over $1,500,000. This year's budget is $1,061,000. Again, the couple of the areas where, if you look at page 27, the interest goes from $3,500 to $10,000, and also we have some tap fee revenues that we anticipate. So that's the main reason for the increases in the sewer revenue. As far as the expenses, as you can see from this slide, this represents the past several years. You can see that The increase there basically coincides with the new wastewater treatment plant opening. This year, it's slightly up from total expenses of this current year budgeted of $659,399. Fiscal year 19, the budget proposed is $725,655. The net income between the proposed revenue and the proposed expenses is a net of $335,345, as you can see on page 28. So that counterbalances some of the concerns with Fund 4. Some of the line items that we want to point out is, and highlight, first of all, is the contractual account 5505.
All right. One of the big items for contractual, when we proposed the budget in 2018, one of the line items, there's $30,000 for the lab. When we did the budget last year, we had an error. We only budgeted for the lab for half a year. So the $30,000, we should have budgeted that for the lab last year. So that's a big difference in the jump in the contractual. It's basically made up of $1,200 for the pumping station, $12,000 for sludge removal at the wastewater treatment plant, $30,000 for the lab, a $4,500 base in HR. The big ticket item on here is the backwash reservoir must be pumped out this year. It is to capacity, and that is roughly about $30,000. So it's something that we've put off for the past year or two. It is now at capacity and has to be pumped out. So that's your increase from $34,000 to $79,000. Like I said, we did make an error because in 2017, your line item for contractual was $60,702. So really, we're only increasing it by about $19,000, and the big part of that is the pumping out the backwash reservoir that has to be done. Once we do it, we don't have to do it again for many years.
Can you go back just for a second, if you would? On the sludge removal, it's my understanding that every year we're gonna see an increase on that for the carrying out
That's not the same.
is not the
This
same
is-
as.
This is the processing at the actual wastewater treatment plant. What we bring in from the pump station that flows through our sewer lines
Okay.
into the wastewater treatment plant is treated, compressed in the sludge,
Right.
and then is hauled out to a landfill. It's not what's in the actual lagoons. That's something completely different.
Okay, so we're now hauling, well, not now, but we are hauling out two separate byproducts then? Is that accurate?
Essentially, yes. We're not responsible for hauling out the lagoon. We've always hauled sludge. It's always been something since there's been a wastewater treatment
Sure,
plant.
sure,
So
sure.
you've always had to haul out the sludge. Now, back to that issue real quick. They didn't haul anything in, and they're not hauling anything out this year. So you do only have one process this year.
Okay.
Operating supplies, that line item stayed the same. You have $300 in equipment, $4,500 at the wastewater treatment plant, $150 at the pump station, $4,000 at the lab, $750 for tools, and $500 in general. Your chemicals, we do have a slight increase in chemicals, only by about $1,500. $500 to treat the lagoons, $16,500 for aluminum, $10,000 for caustic, $16,500 for methanol, $3,500 for chlorine, $6,000 for polymer, and $500 for general. Keep in mind, if we can get to the point where we reduce our I&I, a lot of these costs will be reduced significantly. Repairs and maintenance, we have an increase from $24,500 to $36,100. The basic expenses that we always have are $1,000 for your equipment, $20,000 for your wastewater treatment plant. Your lead operator out there, one of his jobs is to come up, just like with our buildings, a preventative maintenance for both the water treatment plant and for the wastewater treatment plant. This $20,000 is what his estimated basic repairs and maintenance are. 3,500 at the pumping station, 500 for lagoons, 1,000 for lines and piping, 500 for the lab, 1,000 contingency, 1,000 general. Items that we added that are necessary this year is $2,000 for a new compressor, $3,000 for 6 suppressors, $1,100 for a Headworks timer, $1,500 for the explosive gas meter to be calibrated. That makes up your 36,100.
This last slide represents the sewer with comparison of revenues and expenses for the last 9 fiscal years. As you can see, for fiscal year 18 and 19, revenues are outpace expenses slightly on the chart, and you can see that in our final numbers.
And again, this year, as we mentioned last year, we are recognizing depreciation in our audited statements, as Ms. Mills explained. However, we're not recognizing it in our budget because it's a non-cash item. You'll see it reflected in our audited statements. Future infrastructure projects related to sewer. Sewer line needs to be repaired from Irishtown to Creekside Drive. There's about 1,400 linear feet of sewer line that needs to be repaired from the post office to the Mother Seton School. Runs through the park. There's need to replace and repair the garage doors at the wastewater treatment plant. As you can see, the sewer relining of East Main Street's estimated to be about $81,000. We would like to build a new building to keep our trucks from the water plant, or from the sewer plant, and all our new trucks and equipment. If you put them under cover, they last longer as opposed to being exposed to all the elements. The garage at the old wastewater treatment plant needs to be replaced. We still store a lot of things in there. And we need a new generator for the lab at the wastewater treatment plant. These are all items, obviously, anything over 20,000 that we will bring to the board for board approval. They are items that can be depreciated and would be cash expenses.
I have a question. We have a garage at 140 South Seton. Could we use that for storage of the trucks, some of the trucks and stuff?
That's for your public works. You want to keep all your sewer stuff out at the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, okay.
Your public works, your streets, use 140 garage.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We have a garage in Lincoln also, don't we?
At 22
West
East
Lincoln,
Main Street.
Yeah.
West Lincoln.
That's where they park their trucks. The garage at 140 is mostly storage.
The Irishtown to Creekside Drive sewer line, is that something that would be done when Irishtown is rebuilt with the housing in Brookfield? I mean, my understanding is there's going to be
This is a different section.
a revamp of Irishtown.
Right. Yeah, we wouldn't, I mean, these are things that we know need done. I don't know if we would do it in conjunction with that project or before or after.
So is this from South Seton on Irishtown to Creekside?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, North Seton?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to the other,
Yes.
gotcha.
Closer-
Okay, I
Closer
understand now.
to the Lutheran Church.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
Any-
the lower part of Irishtown to North Seton has already been done.
Right.
Any additional questions for Fund 5 sewer? Just briefly go over some other budget items that we have. I want to get back, and we looked at the different departments, and we looked at the salaries and wages. Want to go over some overall numbers across the board that we have. Last year, the across the board amount for salary and wages was $834,498. With the new salary chart, that would include a 2% cost of living adjustment. That amount would increase to $856,441. That difference is a difference of almost $22,000, or a 2.63% increase over last year's budget. Like I say, we go through each of the employee positions and we do the allocations. The allocations of wages across the board was the 856,441. Roughly about half our employees are consistent in the departments they work in. The other half can move around, and we take a look at that each year as far as the allocations. Across the board, also, with the employer rate for the FICA, last year's across the board amount was $63,977. That would be up slightly to $65,518 based on the percentage to gross salaries. Our state unemployment, last year's fiscal year 18, we had budgeted of $32.89. Recently, this is a hard one to budget. Recently, our percentage for unemployment had actually went up from 1.8% to 2.4%. So across the board, we've increased that to 4,920. We're estimating high on any type of increase they might have. Hopefully they won't. Hopefully it'll go down, but we'll have room to absorb any type of percentage increase. Workman's comp last year, we had budget of $18,000. This year, being very conservative, hopefully it will be less than this, but across the board we have a budget of $22,500. Health insurance. Fortunately, last year our budget was a little over $200,000 for our health insurance. Our health insurance actually went down last year, which was a good thing. Our pharmacy costs actually went down, so hopefully that trend will continue. But we've put in a 5% increase for the second half of the year when the new rates are set for the coming year. So that total across the board was $210,463. Again, when we're setting these across the board budget numbers, we're being very conservative. Hopefully those numbers will be lower, that we would have additional amounts that we possibly have as a transfer of the fund to. And our pension expenses, the budget last year was just about $62,000. This year we have a conservative budget of $65,000, so that has increased also. That's where the employees pay 2% of their wages into the state of Maryland pension system. So those were numbers across the board for the salaries that I wanted to go over.
And part of your salary increase is also going to be your month overlap, where you're paying essentially two planners' positions. So that's a slight increase you'll get in planning and zoning. As far as the step increases, all performance evaluations were reviewed, and each employee is eligible for their step increase, and their performance evaluations are in their personnel file.
I have a question. I know we're getting town planner, but did we keep the other position open again for this year? We had the position that is vacant?
It's not budgeted, but the position is still essentially in your job descriptions, it's still on the
Okay,
books.
so it's not budgeted for this year.
It's not budgeted, no.
Correct. Move on. Wanted to also look at the electric budget. As you can see from this slide, we are slightly up over last year. And one of the things I wanted to go over is for the 2019 electric budget we had, some of the prior year numbers, for example, in fiscal year 17, the budget for fiscal year 17 was $167,498. We came in at $165,649. The total budget for electric across the board for fiscal year 19 that's proposed is $172,950. That's up slightly. We're again trying to be conservative as far as the amount that we have reserved for electric expense. One thing for this current year, fiscal year 18, for about 4 months, one of the solar fields was in operation, so we will actually have a slightly lower amount this year for budget, but so against budget. So across the board, the amount was $172,950.
And the,
And this-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
One of the biggest things is again, your wastewater treatment plant. You know, it didn't come on full online until 2016, 2015, 2016. There's not a lot of historical data on the amount that your new plant uses and working with solar. So that's why you'll see, you know, your biggest increase is gonna be there at the sewer, just trying to allocate it and budget it correctly. Cole's done a really good job of understanding the solar and understanding the electric and trying to budget it where it needs to go. And so that's basically where you see the increase in electric is at the sewer plant.
How is that, how are we doing on the solar? Is the electric is it still down?
No, it's back operational. So we're back in business. I just threw the slide on here for Power Star to show you that we're still seeing a reduction in our costs. So the Power Star was installed in September of 2015, and
That was that new
I don't like how they
technology?
did this, so I really don't even know how to explain it. Other than, I have my own chart. Let me get my own chart, if you give me 1 second. Oh, where's my Power Star? We are still seeing savings in Power Star. Our bills are reduced from before it was installed. So it was installed in September of 2015. So what I was trying to do is show what the expenses were prior to 2015 and then after 2015, but it looks like I don't have it. I thought. So my apologies. But I just prepared something for the mayor for his upcoming presentation, and we do see a savings, it was roughly about $2,300 to $2,400 yearly savings since the installation of Power Star. We try to estimate our insurance. As you know, in 2017, our insurance rates jumped significantly. So we shifted to another insurance company, and it greatly reduced our insurance costs to $25,000. However, there's been a slight percentage increase to $31,700 for insurance, and that's allocated across the board.
One of the things we want to also show at the end of the presentation is some of the projects that have been completed recently.
Right. So with all the funding that's been approved throughout fiscal year 18, and we've been extremely busy in this town thanks to board approval. I think the projects that have been accomplished in fiscal 18 through town funding and grant funding and through your efforts and staff efforts are remarkable. If you sit back and look at it, as you know,
I'm sorry.
we completed the dog park. Everybody was in attendance to that. That dog park was a long time coming. The community pool, all the inspections have been completed. We have officially passed all of them. The last thing to be done is the mowing and weed eating and cleaning up. We are ready for opening day. And it looks like the weather's gonna complete. Again, this was a project that started with a simple renovation, and thanks to board approval, we've got a brand-new pool. I can't wait for everybody to get out there and use it. The town square, this started off with an idea a long time ago, through the mayor and the board and state highway. We're hoping the grand opening is scheduled for June 30th. This project was completed with state highway funding as well as grants and town designated funds. The community park fence, the board fence that goes through the community park is, I think it's beautiful. I think it added a special touch to the park. Right there, the top one, that's what Rip Rap looks like at Rainbow Lake. That's the one section, if you're gonna walk back towards the trails. He did a phenomenal job of it. If you went out and looked at it before and after, it was really eroding. We installed the salt shed, thanks to the county who supplies us with salt. They are actually out there blacktopping the inside of it and the entrance into it. The MS4 permit, Ms. Sipperly and I successfully worked through the MS4 permit process towards the end of the year. The GIS mapping that you continue to fund and believe in, it is the new age of technology for municipalities. Here's some of the grants that town staff has applied for, check marks. These are ones that have been funded. The tree planting that we did, the ash tree injections. However, we did not receive the one grant we applied for St. Joseph's Walkway. We did receive a $10,000 grant from Maryland Energy Administration for LED light bulbs for all our buildings, town buildings, so that will reduce our electric costs. We didn't get the recycling bin. However, we did get the grant for the cigarette ashtrays as well as literature. The grant for the 3 wayside exhibits is pending. The grant for the bay restoration operations, because we met certain levels required by MDE, we kept our levels below. I believe it's for the phosphorus. We are eligible for a $30,000 grant. We did not get the multi-user field grant and the pool parking lot paving, the grant for POS. And as I mentioned, the 2 grants we just submitted for the bathhouse and for the all-accessible playground. Discussions, questions. The one thing I would throw out, this budget, we begin talks on this budget in the early part of April. Staff works really hard across the board to pull these numbers together, and this budget could not be possible without their hard work. One thing that I implemented beginning last year is we do have our budget meetings. Every department head takes ownership for their own budget, and a lot of thought has gone into all these numbers. So with that being said, I'll open up to you for any questions.
Okay, any questions for town staff related to the budget as it's been presented? Any items needed for clarification?
Oh,
No?
that's right.
I have a pseudo-related question.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, we love our deputies. We have 2 deputies. We'd love more. And it's come to my attention that, you know, they give traffic tickets out, which we want them to do because we don't want people speeding through the town and being dangerous. But we don't receive any percentage. All of that money goes to state roads or something like that. It would be nice if we could figure out who that is and see if we could get at least 10% back so that we could get another deputy, which would then write more tickets. And I think it would be a win-win situation. I don't know who we could bring to the table to ask that question.
I'm sure it's a question that all municipalities have and would desire. It's not gonna happen. We can
Why
always
not?
put it out there. It's state funding. It's state, county
But
funding,
it's
and that part
our
of your
money
money
that's
that
creating
comes
those
back
tickets.
for your state highway, for the money you get back from the state, that, where's it at? Where's the revenue at?
There's a line item in revenues.
The intergovernment revenues.
So you're saying we actually do get that money back?
It's not specifically from tickets.
Highway
The state,
user revenue.
right, you've got your highway user money that comes in, you have your state aid, police quarterly funding that we get about $16,700 that's put towards that, law enforcement. It's called the state aid police, funding that we receive from the state. I'm sure a lot of people, you know, a lot of municipalities, a lot of places would like the money. I wouldn't even begin to know how you would even get it from the state, because that's where it goes. It goes to the state and then gets trickled out towards all the counties, and then it's trickled out to all the municipalities. Our portion of that is the 16,700 this year.
I mean, if we can't.
I mean,
pursue
I
it.
don't know, I don't know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's anything the state does. I don't think the state sends anybody, any municipality or anybody, any earmarked ticket money. It's trickled out through all their programs. It's the revenue they bring in, and then it funds all their different programs. You know, our revitalization project could potentially have been funded through ticket money that came in through the state. How they distribute it, I don't know. I'm sure it's in their budget somewhere. I mean, it
More
would be nice.
palatable if that's the case.
What's that?
It's more palatable if that's the case.
Everybody has, I think, a handout in front of them on accrued leave. Do you want to talk about it, Cole? You know more. I'll let
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Tabler talk about it. It's got,
We handed out a handout basically concerning accrued leave, and you can take the time to read through it. Essentially, what it discusses is in our water and sewer fund, each of our employees are given a home department as far as a designation to a home department. Obviously, the folks out at the water and sewer plant, they have home departments within Fund 4 and Fund 5. Each year we do a calculation based on their accrued benefits that they have on the books, as far as any accrued leave that they would have if they would leave employment of the town. In Fund 4 and Fund 5, those employees, there's an accrual made, an accounting accrual made in those funds to expense out any of the differences in the liability each year. The employees that are a designated home department in Fund 1, it's that journal entry is not done each year based on the fact that they work for the general fund home department. The situation you can come into is if you have a home department employee in the general fund, if they would so decide to leave the town, we would have a portion of their benefits paid out at time when they leave. You can't always anticipate that. Some of the folks that leave our employment, we have a heads up, and some, of course, we wouldn't have. If that situation occurs, they would be paid the benefits through payroll, and we'd have an expense hit the books as far as those their home department expenses, as far as under salaries. Those wouldn't be necessarily accounted for in the budget because they weren't anticipated. So we've contacted, it's been a concern of mine here, is if we had an employee leave that had a home department in the general fund one of those departments, at the time we would pay out that leave, we wouldn't have budgeted for it, and it would go against the expense for that department. Well, what we've gotten with we contacted Michelle Mills to see if there was a way we could budget for it in a proper manner. Looking at our financials and our audited statements, we had a fund balance in our general fund of about $1.4 million. What we propose in discussing with Michelle, with Ms. Mills, is that we take $150,000 of that unassigned fund balance and just simply designate that towards, designate that as a committed amount towards people that would leave and have benefits paid out to them. It's just a designation within the net assets. Currently, as of May of this year, just recently, doing the calculation, the accrued amount was about 142,000. So we're proposing to designate about 150,000. Now these are all the employees. If they would all leave at the very same time, this is the total amount that we would have on the books to pay out. Similar to Fund 4 and Fund 5, it's just the difference there is we make an entry to accrue the expense each year to get up to the level of liability. So we're, in essence, proposing to do the same thing with Fund 1 Home Department employees. So that's basically this information on the handout, and we're looking to put together, I think, a resolution
Right.
maybe for the next meeting that would so designate that. We wanted to bring it up at this time because it's kind of part of the discussions of budget, and something we would propose to revisit probably on a yearly basis, just to give an update of where we are with any type of allocation within the net assets.
Can I ask the question?
Sure.
How much accrued time are you allowed to keep?
Well, so if you recall, so for anybody hired prior to January of 2016, there is no cap. So you pay out your vacation, your sick leave's paid out at a half a rate. Your vacation, your personal are paid out at
Personal's also half.
half. Personal's also half. Vacation is paid at full.
If you leave with 2 weeks' notice or something like that, how about?
Something, I'd have to go back and read it, but yeah, you have to leave on, good standing. You have to give 2 weeks' notice. After January of 2016, any new hires, we did set the cap of how much vacation time you can accrue in an effort to help reduce this payout cost. Unfortunately, I don't have that number on top of my head. I want to say 240 hours was the cap, or 300 hours, maybe it was 300 hours. But we did put a cap on it, so you could accrue up to this amount of vacation time, and then you'd have to use it before you can accrue anymore. And I believe we do not pay out for personal, we changed the, and you voted on it in the handbook, we do not pay out for personal anymore. I would have to look it up. I'll look it up and email everybody what the current policy says. We'd like to bring a policy to you. We would like to encourage people that are long-term. I'm not one of them. I like to take my leave. I'm to the point in my life where I'm not going to accrue a lot of leave. I want my time off. And there are employees that are like that. However, there are some employees that have accrued, just because of their time here, 20 years, they have accrued a lot of vacation time. We are discussing a policy to bring to you of offering a buyback, where you can buy back a portion of your vacation time. We'll pay for you now.
Correct. That's
That
great
would
of
help
you.
reduce our expense the time you leave. And we would also be paying out at a lower rate because you won't have your step or your COLA, and you won't be making, you'd be making more by the time you leave as opposed to when we pay you out now.
Right, also, if that would happen, it'd be nice to put a cap on that. Cap it off, don't let it accrue back up again, unlimited.
Well, you can't really go back and put a cap on existing, people that have already been hired. They were hired under these conditions. You can't really put a cap on people that are already here, but that's why we did it for any future hires. But you've got some employees that have been here. I'll tell you that Miss Sipperly retiring is just one of several in the next 5 years. So we need to get ahead of this and plan for it. When Mr. Haller left, he took a large chunk of money with him, and we hadn't planned for it, and it did take a hit on our budget. So we're just trying to plan for things that may be forthcoming.
Okay, so we'll look for something related to this in the next meeting.
John Clapp's recommendation and Ms. Mills' recommendation is to prepare a resolution
Okay.
for that designation, and Mr. Clapp is preparing one for us, and we'll have
Great.
it for the next meeting.
Okay.
A buyback policy I'm looking to bring to you maybe July or August.
Okay, great.
We are working with HR on ways to, reduce expenses and to streamline things.
Sure. Mr. Ritz, you had a question earlier about a budget transfer potentially in the,
Potentially, yeah.
Proposed budget.
Well, there's a few things. I was going to be making a request for an agenda item next week. I don't know if you recall last meeting, Mr. Wayne Slaughter gave us a
The Arboretum proposal.
that and the volunteer work for
Yes.
cleanup like the second Saturday of every month, commencing in July. He and I did chat. I would like him to come to the meeting on June 4th, I believe it is, the June meeting,
I think he's coming.
to finalize his proposal. That said, I don't know if that's something that needs to go into the budget this evening or not.
Okay, so that's what your
That's
connection
part
was.
of it.
Okay, all right.
And
Well,
then
if
I
it's
have,
a- oh, sorry.
so go ahead.
If it's a volunteer program, there shouldn't be any additional funding that would need to go for it.
It-
And
Advertising?
remind, just so everybody's aware, you have got to adopt your budget by June 30th. So.
Advertising
For,
for the volunteer program?
I would
You're saying that's fee related, like.
That
we
would
could-
be a
like
fee that would be
papers
related to
and
that.
so on.
those are small expenses. I don't know that you need a line item for it.
Okay. So the-
I would foresee them being small expenses.
Right.
Some of the ideas that he had.
I mean, the botanical garden, I mean, that is a big expense. My recommendation would be somebody needs to look for a grant, based off the projects that need to be completed. And you, as we've discussed, looking at your priority list, maybe there's a grant out there for that kind of thing. I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not
no.
real familiar with it.
And in my discussion with Mr. Slaughter, I believe, prioritizing what he discussed, the first item would have been the trash cleanup.
I mean, and also for him shooting for July, I mean, it's an awful quick turnaround for us to get everything up and running for whatever he needs. So I don't know if you have an idea of what the funding would be that he would need for a project like that. If it's a couple $100s, I mean, the money's already essentially in the budget.
I would think what, trash bags, vests, grab sticks, maybe gloves, and I don't know, I don't think that's a huge budget item. that-
Okay, so then this is
Oh, right.
probably, we're safe there. Okay.
Does that sound
Yes,
close to what you guys were kicking around? Okay.
yes. I don't have any dollar amounts.
No, okay. Is that, were those the things for your consideration regarding budget transfer?
That was part of it, and then,
Okay.
and then a potential agenda item for next meeting.
Okay,
And
Did you want to increase money for entertainment, or?
well, that's what it's
that
gonna
was
ask,
my
yeah.
next,
Oh.
that was my next.
Let's talk about that. What do you have in mind?
If we, my problem with this though, I didn't know, I didn't say anything ahead of time for parks, and the number I was okay with, but then I found out tonight when I saw the slideshow, then the line number 6901 on page 15, special events, for the fiscal year 19 budget's 3,600, which includes, lost my page. Okay, that includes several items. Farmers market, $600. Community garden, 100. Pool, 1,200. Generals, 500. And then community functions, 1,200, which I'm assuming that would fall under the like park, summer entertainment, things of that nature. So I have some potential bands with some contracts they're ready to submit to the town. They don't have, I asked them to wait, though. I'd like to see where we were going with the budget.
Well, right now, you've only spent $241. So in your current budget, and that's why we didn't add any money to it. And you know, I reached out to you to see if you
Yeah.
knew anything. But for fiscal year 18, you had a $1,200 budget and only $241 has been spent. So right now, I mean, you have $959. If you have a contract to sign for fiscal year 18, the money still is already there.
Even if the event occurs in, let's say, August.
No, it has to go in fiscal year 19.
It's not going to happen before June 30th.
But so that's why I'm saying why it's 1,200 is because we had 1,200 last year and no money got spent. If you know what your contracts are and what the total is, we can certainly work that number in somehow. I mean, we can work it in.
How much do you need?
Well, there's another part of this.
Okay.
I already started some investigation, got some paperwork. I need to look into it a little bit more. I would like Little League to return to Emmitsburg next year. And I was hoping that the board would be agreeable to help that out a little bit. I already have some interested individuals serving on a board for Emmitsburg baseball and softball. I want to know where the money, the original group, if they have any funds left over for that. You know, there's you know, maintaining the name of that. I don't know if they're going to keep the same name of the Emmitsburg Baseball Softball Limited. There's liability insurance involved and everything. So I do have some interested individuals, though, serving.
So a
board,
ballpark figure,
which-
no, again, no pun intended, but would you want seed money from the board? I mean, that's what it sounds like. What, do you have any estimate what it might be that you're looking for?
I think I need to find out how much money is remaining from the original organization as well, unless Commissioner Sweeney knows,
And I-
would have an idea.
I don't know, Sandy Topper, how much money they had left in their board.
She-
But,
My recommendation, have you spoken to Mr. Lowry? Because I know he's
I
been
reached
working
out to
without some
Mr.
people.
Lowry and we didn't get a chance to ever
Okay,
communicate.
because I know he's been recruiting as well and working on funding also. I know the current group that went out has not been real forthcoming with anything. So that may be why you haven't heard a lot back. That is the big question, what happened to all the money? A lot of the equipment that was here has been sold. Where the money went to, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's not anything the town had anything to do with. The town has always made a donation to Little League each year, and part of the agreement was that we would help maintain the fields. That was the town's portion of it. I know there's a lot of people trying to get the Little League back up and running. So I don't know, I mean,
I at least initially next year. I mean, I know that organization that Mr. Lowry's with right now. I don't know what his plans are in the future. The group there now, you know, they're doing the free clinics for everyone in town here coming up, but it's a pricey.
yeah, I understand. He had told me that he had people that were willing to take over outside of his league, that in town that were willing to take over and start Emmitsburg Little League or Emmitsburg baseball and softball back up. So I'm just saying, in an effort to not duplicate everybody's work, I didn't know if you had a chance to talk.
No,
to him.
I will contact him and make sure, because I mean I've already been in contact with Little League from Williamsport, PA. They sent me, you know, all the paperwork, you know, starting a charter here in Emmitsburg, and you know we have the fields. So
I hope they wouldn't have sold all the equipment because the Little League has only been shut down for a year. Why they would sell everything and not think we would ever have another Little League with all the fields we have there is a big mistake. Sandy and them shouldn't have did that. That was a big no-no because it did not belong to them. All the town's businesses and stuff bought those uniforms and equipment, not them. They shouldn't have sold that. I mean, I hope they didn't sell it, but if they sold it, they shouldn't have did that.
It's gone.
Is it gone?
Yeah. It's gone.
Yeah, they came and cleaned everything out one day.
Thermont took it.
And my understanding is it got sold to different organizations.
So Mr. Ritz talking.
Thermont Little League took it.
Or purchased it, I don't know.
They
That-
purchased it.
Is that what you're saying? They purchased it, or?
I think it's a combination of both. I don't want to speculate. This is what I was being
So they must
told.
give all the
No,
money.
I wanted Thermont Little League purchased it for real.
Well, the last
What
lady,
about all the
who-
uniforms?
I don't know.
No, wait, no, wait. I want to
the
hear this.
last lady who was running it left with the bag. No one supported it, and it's not Little League. It's Cal Ripken.
That was
No,
Cal
Cal
Ripken.
Ripken.
I'm not considering Cal Ripken. I'm considering Little League. I've been beginning correspondence with Little League based out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
which is the same organization that is in Thermont currently.
Right.
And we are currently in Thermont's district.
Right.
I want Emmitsburg's district established.
Well, that's fair. That's very nice. Okay, well, let's just lift this reality. A lot of people think that Cal Ripken's better than Little League. And what Mr. Lowry, if you'll give him a chance, he ran Thermont Little League for 4 years. Took
Okay.
it from nowhere to very successful. It had 50 children playing down there, at least 50 for Thurmont, because it wasn't available here in town.
Okay.
And if you get the volunteers, it's all about the volunteers. And what he has got, he's got a volunteer base. He started out with the touring teams. He's doing everything he said, taking care of the fields. He's doing clinics, and he lives here. And
That's
he knows what he's doing.
Well, then, if Mr. Lowry is very interested in baseball, I would like him to.
Yep.
I would love for him to be part of an organization here in town that our youth could participate in. It's more cost effective and friendly on families' pockets. The current organization,
Right.
you know, they're offering nice clinics and all, but
But this all starts so late, Joe. It didn't just, this just dropped. We've been working on this for over a year, and finally it just dropped that they weren't going to do it. There's not going to be any teams here.
okay. So let's consider it next year, Mr. Mayor. You said yourself you'd love to see the E's on everyone's hat.
Yep.
Let's make it happen.
Well, that's what we're working on it, and he was even thinking about starting a recreational league up here because so many people just play among ourselves and then go. But baseball is coming back. It's coming back.
Well,
It died out. There were no volunteers for that. One lady got left with a bag, and she, in desperation, just turned it over to Thurmont.
Okay. So apparently
We had
there's
him in here. We had the Thurmont guy in here.
Okay, I want to jump in for a second again. I think we're both driving, you both are driving in the same direction on the issue about restoring youth baseball. It sounds that way.
We have a man who's committed to it. And I
Sure.
don't want to.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, look, could you be a little bit more forthcoming with this then? If you have,
What forthcoming? What are you talking about?
it sounds like you have plans in
I
the
take-
works.
I
No,
take
let
objection.
me finish.
I take objection to you saying that.
Let me finish. No, you do a lot of things behind the scene that we're not aware of. Okay, I've
Oh.
witnessed this in the past, and I've called you out on it. I think this is a very good thing for our community, the baseball.
Right.
And I don't know what you're doing behind the scenes and not discussing it with us. If you could be more forthcoming and let us know what's going on, I wouldn't have pursued contacting Little League. You know, you have all these great ideas, supposedly, but we don't see them. So you would have to, you could have told us ahead of time.
No, we had the people in here. We had Thurmont in
That
here.
meant nothing to me. That was a bunch.
Okay,
That looked like a setup for Thurmont, who was ill prepared for that meeting. Personally,
We
this
had
was
the other-
all planned for the Mid Maryland United, so they can get used to the ball fields. Is that what your intent was? So that organization could be here and have a presence in town.
I'm just really upset that you'd say I'm not forthcoming with it.
I'm asking you a question. Did you plan for Mid Maryland
You're demanding
United
a
to
question.
come in this
You're
town?
demanding-
All right, gentlemen, hold on for a second. Mr. Ritz, I'm going to ask you to hold off. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask you to hold off. I am. Here's the issue at stake. Mr. Ritz, it's about funding.
Yes.
Correct? We're looking to see if we can budget money for a baseball program for next year. Is that
Yes.
correct? So I'm going to redirect to that. I'm also going to suggest that you guys take some time to have a conversation to sort out what your priorities are, because what I really hear is you're both saying almost the same thing, but the way it's being said, it's not clear to one another. And maybe I could be part of that meeting, and that might help facilitate getting the answers.
I don't think that that's accurate,
think
Well,
Mr.
but-
President.
okay,
I think
fair
I
enough,
think
fair enough,
I
okay.
think the mayor has everything planned out for baseball here in town. Which I'm not.
I don't
I'm
know
not
either way,
saying-
but it also sounds like you have the same thing in mind regarding going after Little League, which is, in my view, we just want baseball here. And the way we're going about it, it seems like, as opposed to having two separate streams and diverting our efforts, it might be best that way, or it might not be. But we have to have those conversations in a civil way, and I don't feel we're going in that direction. No, Mr. Ritz, let me finish for a second.
Okay.
All right. I'm not against either of what you guys are saying. And I think both of you are trying to achieve this ultimate goal of getting our young people a safe, healthy activity. I think we're on that page. But the question is, right now, we're looking at our budget, okay? And we're trying to focus on the budget piece.
Okay,
Now,
I
the
agree.
conversation you guys have, again, I want you to continue it. I would suggest that. I'm not telling you you have to, of course not. But my suggestion is,
Just can't leave it like that. I'm sorry.
well, Mr. Mayor, I don't think you were accused of
No, I just can't leave
Okay.
it like that. It doesn't work about not being forthcoming. I'm the elected administrative officer. Baseball was dead. dead. You know, I got somebody coming here, I got Mr. Lowry, you look at this, jumpstart it, get it going, and take it from there. I don't know where the next step is, and it may dovetail with you, what you want to do. But there's no secret plan to do this. I wanted to get it started again, so we'd have a future. Now we have something to build off
Well,
of.
Mr. Larry wasn't at that meeting though. It was Mr. Beachley, who I
Mis-
never heard of before. You know, if
Mr. Lowry is
Mr.
out of-
Larry would have came in and said, "Look,
Well,
I
he's out of
represent."
town on business. That's
Okay.
the other gentleman was the president. Mr. Lowry's not the president.
Does Mr. Lowry intend to continue Mid Maryland United here in Emmitsburg?
I think it's worth asking him. I think he'd like to and get baseball started here. But his way of getting baseball started here is start with T-ball and build teams up. You're not just going to, out of the sky, start a 11 and 12 team.
Would Mr. Lowry, who is a successful Little League
Right.
president in Thurmont, be interested in running a Little League charter here in Emmitsburg?
Did I ask him that? Didn't I say, will you be the father of baseball? You were there, and we all got surprised. I've asked him, would you run, take this over? And I think he's looking at it. Just get one step at a time. It was too late to start a Little League here.
Well,
I'm looking at next year.
but
Oh, well.
we're not starting the, what we're planning on doing is, he's correct. Other people has also come to me too.
And me.
We're planning to have after I get Heritage Day down,
Great.
we want to have a meeting in the summertime to see what we need to do to get baseball started, Little League started back here, some kind of Little League, or Babe Ruth, or whatever
I'll
kind
invite
of league.
Mr. Lowry. He's already got
It
something
might not
started.
be with Mr. Lowry. It may be with Mr. Lowry, but it might not be with Mr. Lowry. We don't have to use Mr. Lowry if he's, understand, we have 100 children that goes to Thurmont now.
Right.
We would like to get them back here by letting them come back for free to start with and not charge them to play.
Right.
That is a good way to get most of them